and welcome back. So in this tutorial, we're going to look at creating that game view that allows you to, so you're not looking down in the inspector to see your stats, because again, in an actual game, you're not going to have that. So this will create our game view to show the stats on the screen as you progress through the game. Okay, so with the UI, the way to create it is you are going to add it into the hierarchy. So to create a game view, you go into the hierarchy over here, you right click, we're going to create a UI, and regardless of which one you click, so first we're going to be creating a text with an image UI. So we're going to just click on text, and you'll see that this creates a canvas, and then our text box and an event system. So the event system, make sure you don't delete. You need that for these UIs to work. And our canvas, since this is our game view canvas, I'm going to rename this as game view canvas. And then the first thing we want to do is look at our cherries. So the game view, or sorry, the UIs, the way they work is, so this is your screen. Right, so even though your game levels are down here, which is a little bit confusing in terms of how it's set up, but this is the screen that you're working with. So if I go to my game view, then that's the text that I added, right? So that's what it looks like. So here it's kind of way up here, but that's fine. This is the actual screen that you would be looking at. So in the text, so first we're going to create this text we'll call cherries. And this just allows you to keep these organized so you kind of know which ones is which text. Because you'll see as we move along, there's going to be spots where you need to move these down into the inspector and so on. You need to remember which one's which. So for the cherries, I'm going to just set this equal to 3. No, actually, sorry, this you do want to set as 0 to start. And then our font size is relatively small, right? So you can see that's really small. So we can change the font size to, let's make it 40. Actually, let's make it 35. And if you look, well, it's gone. Why? So why did our value leave? Why can't we see it? And that's because this text box is too small. So with the text box selected, up in the upper left here, up here, you can click on this rect tool, which you can stretch that box so that now you can see it. So you want to stretch this so that you're able to see it. And we're going to move this over. And then we also want to add an image. So we're going to right click on our canvas, go down to UI, and then image, and click an image. And in that image, we want to add, so we're just going to add our cherries. So I'm going to go down to where our items were. So items, fruits, and cherries. And then we're just going to drag that first image into our source image. And that'll put that as our, so that's going to be our game view. So if we look at the game view, that's what it would look like right now. So we're going to organize it in a second. Now the other thing, and something that I didn't mention before, is so when we first start your game creation, you have the option to change which view you want to be using. So screens have different sizes, they have different resolutions, and so on. So right now, if we click, right, so if we change our screen size or resolution, we lose some of that, right? So we're losing the UI that we created. And depending, and there if we go to 1920 by 1080, it moves that UI over here into the middle of the screen. So we don't want that. So I'm just going to go back into free aspect since that's where we were. What we want to do is keep this constant in the upper left. So our canvas scaler, so over on our canvas, over in the inspector, if you look here, we have a UI scale mode. We want to scale with screen size. So currently it scales it off the screen, but that's fine. We're going to just go back and we can move these back into the scene itself. Right, so we're going to move that over there, and we'll move this down here. So that's our game view right now. So the other things that we want to add, so I'm going to do this now. So change the name of this to cherry image. Again, so that you can easily access it or know which one it is. So cherries, actually I'll just call it cherry image. And then we also want to create another text. So create a UI text. And we're going to call this one our health. So this is going to be, I'll just set it to equal to 3 for now. And again, we'll change the font to 35. And again, you can't see that. Well, why did we lose it? Because your text box isn't big enough. So you just need to go to the rect tool and then stretch it so that you're able to see it. And then we can go to the move tool and move it over so that it lines up with the cherries in the here. And with this, so with the texts, we're going to rename this to health text so that you kind of know which number or which text box is representing the health. Same thing, we're going to add an image. So right click, add an image. So UI, go down to image. And then in that image, I actually have a hearts already kind of set up. So I've created these in a pixel app and then I've already moved them in. So same as you did for your characters. So you can go to one of those asset stores that I mentioned in the first tutorial. So the opengameart.org or itch.io or the Unity asset store or any other asset store, and you just want to find a heart image. So I have, in mine, I had 2 hearts. So I had to set this as multiple, 16 pixels per unit. And then I applied it, and then I went to the sprite editor, and I had to clip it so that I had the 2 different images. Right, so I needed to slice it. So in here, I'm going to, so again, for my health image, I'm going to drag my hearts over to the source image, which sets that as my image. So I'm going to, again, rename this so that you can keep these organized in terms of which ones are which. So rename it health image, and that's it. So this heart it's fairly big for this. So the easier way to scale this is you could go in and change the sizes of your pixels now, but it's easier just to, in this case, because we want this one change, we're going to change the scale. So I'm going to set it to 0.4, 0.4, and 0.4. And actually, I think that looks pretty good like that. And then I'm going to try to line it up a bit with our number value here. And that looks good like that. So again, you can go to your game view, look at it. These look fairly big, so I'm going to go back and edit them in a second. And then last thing you want to do is add, so again, we're going to go game view canvas. We're going to add another UI, and we're going to add a text. This time we're going to call it lives, but this will set to equal to 4, just so that you'll be able to see the differences when we move the different texts around. And then again, we'll set the font size to 35, and we need to change the rect so that we can see it. And now we can move it over to line up here. Now, this one I'm going to rename as lives text. And then last thing we want to do is add an image to show the number of lives. So UI, and then we're going to add an image. And in that image, this time I'm going to just add our character. So I'm going to use the Ninja Frog. I'm going to use the jump one since it's just the one. You could use any one that you want. So I'm going to drag that over into the source image. And that's going to represent our UI. So I already know I'm going to go in and change these to make them smaller. So I'm going to already set this a little bit smaller than our heart was. So I'm going to set it to 0.3, 0.3. And the z-axis shouldn't matter because we're only working in an xy plane. So that would be our character there to show the number of lives. And I think actually that looks okay. I'm going to go back and play with so you can go in and change the scales and the size of these. So I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to pause out, and you could do the same, pause the video, and go and play with the settings till your game view looks the way you like it. Okay, so I have mine set up, so I think it looks good like that in the game view. So the other thing that we want to do is what did I do there? So I accidentally, wait, hang on. Okay, so I accidentally pulled this out of so I'm just going to drag it back up into so it anchors to up here, so I can just switch more easily between the views. So in the scene view, so you want to anchor these so that they kind of stay in the upper left corner. So if you select all of them, so I'm just going to hold the shift down and select all of those objects. So you could drag these around, all of them now as one. I'm going to put the back in the upper left corner. Just make sure that that's good. Yeah. And then you want to anchor these so that they do stay there. So again, with those selected over in the right hand side in our inspector, you're going to click on this little anchor thing, and we're going to anchor them so that they're in the top left. So you just click on top left, and that's going to anchor them so that they're always in the upper left there. And that's it for this part of the tutorial. Now we want to be able to, so if we play our game, when we collect the apples, those, when we collect the cherries, right, it's not showing up here, right? So you can't see how many cherries there are. So we need to add that to our script. So we're going to go back to our player script, and we're going to edit the script, which actually I have it open here. So we're going to edit the script. And what you want to do is we want to create a, in the item collector, we can edit our script here. So what we want to do is change it so that, actually I'm going to do this in the, I think in our player script. No, actually it's fine here. It's fine. We're going to do it here with the items. So the items will keep contained. I was thinking because we're going to do something similar in our player script when we look at the number of hearts that it's showing. So the health system will be separate. So we'll just do it here anyways. So we're going to serialize. So what we want to do is create a text first off, right? So we want to create a serialized, capital CS, so serialize field, and we want to create a private text, and let's just call it cherries. And that's going to create a text that we can kind of move that text box in. And then the other thing we want to do is in the update here, we're going to set that text, right? So our cherries text is going to be equal to, and then in quotes, because we're not saying how many, you could, so if you didn't add the image there, you might have cherries here, and then equals, and then what does it equal? So I'm just going to put a colon, and then we want to add the number of cherries that we have, so number of cherries. And that's it actually for this. So in terms of that then, so we created an apple, a cherries, actually I'm going to call this cherries text. So to match down here, so cherries text, yeah. So we're creating a private text called cherries text, and then our cherries text dot text. So it's what is that game object text? It's going to equal the, so this is what it's going to print, and then it's also going to show the number of cherries. So we'll save that. So save the item collector and go down, and I'm going to get an error here, but that's fine because I want to kind of illustrate something. So we're going to get an error here that says type space, the type or namespace name text could not be found. And that's because Unity itself has, so we're using the Unity engine, but we're not using the UI engine per se. So what we want to say here, you need to add in using Unity engine dot UI. So that adds those components of the Unity into the script to allow it to recognize, okay, it's using the UI engine as well. So we'll save that out. Let it compile. Okay, so if we go back into ours, now if we click on our player and go down, you want to find the item collector script, you'll see that you have this game object, well not game object, but this variable or object was created called cherries text. So what we want to do is we want this to be the cherries text, right? So that is going to be, so that's essentially this text here, right? And that text is going to equal the colon and then the number of cherries that we have. So if we push play, we should be able to go. We're going to collect the cherries, and then it's going to show up in our, and there they are, right? So we have 2 cherries, we have 3 cherries, and so on. So that's perfect. That looks great. So that's it for this tutorial. So that kind of creates the UI or the GameView UI that you can use. In the future videos, we will look at adding the health system, so decreasing when you get hit, our number of hearts, as well as decreasing our number of lives when you don't have any health left. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we'll look at adding an enemy to the game and looking at making interactions with those enemies as well. So take care, and I'll see you in the next video.